Okay, it says we're live, but it says 0 seconds. Now we're live officially. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Love First Christians Bible Study. This week, I appreciate everybody here. Let's start with my big old face on the screen at first here. I'm Hody Johns. I am joined by usually lots of people. Today, nobody. I believe Aaron's running a little late. Ben's got some medical stuff he's taking care of. Had a couple of guests last week, and it was really good seeing them. I'm really hoping that they decide to swing by again. But if nothing else, we've got another good week of Bible stuff here for you. I already see the views coming in, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. As always, if you'd like to join, we would be very blessed to have you, whether you're Christian, non-Christian, Christian curious, or even just have some criticisms or questions about Christianity. The Love First Christians is the place to be. We will treat you well, regardless of your way of life. If you'd like to join us, the link to the Discord group is in the title of this or the description of this video. And yeah, that said, I will go ahead and get started. Let's do some talking here. So the first one I wanted to start about here with our Bible reading here was this part in Ephesians here. And it says, always be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourself together with peace. This is a real challenging one because I think all of us naturally our minds want to draw to an extreme, right? Because an extreme is easier to think about. We just say, "Oh, I will always do this no matter what, or always do that no matter what." Right? It's when we allow exceptions that may be healthy, but where it requires a lot more work on our part. So a good example of this is we just think I always tell the truth no matter what. But what if, like, somebody's hunting down an innocent person and you know where they're hiding and they ask you where that person's at? Well, that instance occurs in the Bible, and in the Bible, it's of course okay to lie about it. God encourages that in that circumstance. And so we need to allow the Holy Spirit. Bray says, "Hey, what up, fam? Hey, Bray, how you doing, man?" See, at least somebody showed up who I know. Happy to have you. That there's work to be done, right? And so when we say something like always be humble and gentle, okay, we know kind of do those things. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. And in other biblical translations, this is translated even as sins. So there is some tolerance of sin that we need to have. Now, we can go back, I think even within Ephesians, but certainly Paul is like, hey, listen, if somebody's sinning among you, really, give them the smackdown. And so we have this balance here, right? We have this, both Paul being like, yeah, people sin, like, hey, love them, try to unify on a singular goal. And that's why I include the verse 3 in what I wanted to talk about here, because we can keep ourselves united in the Spirit. And that's kind of the point that we need to make when we talk about how much tolerance we have for somebody else sinning. Right? We don't want to just instantly cast people out all the time. Otherwise, we will have a completely empty church. Jesus talked about it when he was washing the disciples' feet. He was like, listen, everybody's going to get dirty just walking around. You're going to sin just by being in the world. It's you're a fallen human being. It's going to happen. And so you will just naturally need some washing. So we don't want to just start dismissing everybody as soon as they sin. That's until we have ascended to heaven, we still struggle with sin, all of us. So we want to unite as much as we can. And the way to do that is make sure we're united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. So what we're able to do then is say, hey, this person struggles with a legitimate sin. Obviously, we still want to fix it. Okay. But we want to be humble about it. We want to be gentle about it. And we want to be patient about it, as Paul says here. And our love gives us an allowance, a tolerance, right? To say, like, yes, they lied, they were scared, something like that. I don't want to cast them back out. Now, when is a liar worthy of disaffiliation, right? Because Paul said earlier, man, if these people are sinning, I believe his biggest instance was somebody who was having sex with his mother-in-law, right? Committing adultery with his mother-in-law and was like proud about it. And it's like, listen, if it's like I made a mistake, I sinned, I'm fallen, have mercy upon me. And Paul's like, oh, yeah, like, let's forgive this person. Let's keep united in the Spirit. Let's keep doing good works. But there is a point where they're trying to create disunity with the Spirit. And in that instance, the person is actually trying, in that particular case, the person was actually trying to make doctrine that it was okay to just have sex with whoever, including people who are married to other people and people you might be related to and stuff. And Paul's like, listen, that's not really what we're going for here, guys. So that's, I think important to keep in mind when we talk about this. Am I able to keep myself united in the Spirit with this person? And I should make that effort, right? Like maybe they make a sin, maybe they're proud of it at first or something like that. I'm not expecting immediate repentance, immediate contrition, right? But I find that I need to make that effort to get there, right? To say like, yes, maybe they're not contrite right now, but can I get them to a point where we can unite peacefully and say, let's work together for a solution? A lot of times, especially with Christianity, what I find is the best way to fix a problem is not to just talk about that problem, right? Like a lot of people find themselves, let's say, struggling with bigotry, right? Especially as we're reading through Isaiah. It's a really important lesson for this week, right? Let's say they're struggling with bigotry and say, okay, maybe at the moment, Daryl Davis spends very little time talking to these people about race, right? Most of the time what he's doing is providing them an alternative community and just getting closer to them. And so I find with a lot of Christians that are split like this, what we do is we create a goal that has nothing to do with the sin that they have, right? If they're bigoted and they say, you know what, let's just serve your community a little bit. What'll happen is you'll come to meet people, right? You'll come to know people that you end up loving and you love them as your neighbors. And then you kind of say, like, if I hold on to my bigotry, then I'm not going to get all these blessings from my community. And given that choice, very few Christians decide to choose the worst one, right? Decide to choose to be alone and angry. And so we want to make that a goal for people that they have. And I think that's a good way to kind of view things a little bit. It's a sticky situation. As always, you need to let the Holy Spirit guide you. And so we want that kind of I'm not going to create a new standard because, like I said, we need to be able to think for ourselves. It's exhausting, but we need to think for ourselves. So, whatever is in your head, whatever you think the right thing to do is, not just in your head, obviously clear it with the Holy Spirit. Use your conscience. Pray about it. Your gut instinct might be wrong. But if the Holy Spirit has you leaning a certain way, go with that instinct, right? God trumps all. And he's going to help guide you through kind of messy situations like that. And we're always going to be in this messy situation. So just get comfortable by being surrounded by sinners who are all making mistakes and saying, I need to have a unity with these people. I need to create that drive and to have that. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but that's how it goes sometimes. I want to share this particular one here because I really liked it. Let me make sure I have that. Yes, here it is here. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnants of the people of Israel, you whom I have upheld since your birth, and I have carried since you were born. Boy, this is a wrong translation. That makes sense. Okay, suddenly things were not sounding right to me there. Here we go. Listen to me, descendants of Jacob, and all you who remain in Israel. I have since cared for you since you were born. Yes, I carried you before you were born. I will be your God throughout your lifetime until your hair is white with age. I made you, and I will care for you, and I will carry you along and save you. Not as much to expound upon on this one, but I think it's cool to know that we were loved and carried by God before we ever came to earth. That we existed. Before I move on, I want to cover something Bray says here. Sin is so subjective. It's best to lead with grace and intervene when we see it harming the person. If that happens, approach them in private. Turning it into a political hashtag to rage against the person is about the worst way to go about it. Yeah. When I was reading about like cult mind control and understanding that calling a person out for being in a cult is like the surest way to drive them back into it. And you might just say, hey, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just calling it like it is or whatever. Well, your goal is actually to have a good outcome, right? And if we know that that creates about a bad outcome, then that's the wrong way to go about it. So, and yeah, like you said, Bryce, sin is really subjective. Like lying's a sin, except for when you're saving somebody's life, or when there's some good to be done, or when you think your parents are going to come down too hard on you, right? Like there are these exceptions here that we're like, we don't want to inflict harm on ourselves or our loved ones. And so there is tolerance for this within the scriptures. And so it's important to keep that in mind. We have a verse later, but I'll refer to it now. That it's all about the fruit, right? This is how we determine if we're on the right path or not. And so I guess it's worth examining that within the context of when do we cut somebody off who's sinning? Well, what fruits are you bringing? If you're bringing in good fruit together, you're always going to be imperfect. But if the work that you do with people who are not like you is positive, then great, the fruit is there. If you're bringing in negative fruit, it's time to stop trying to make it work then, right? Like if you are coming together and it says coming together for unity, and what you're not getting is unity, and think of all the other fruit of the spirit, right? Love, gentleness, self-control, patience, joy, right? If those things aren't present as you try to do this, then you're following a doctrine and you're not following the spirit. So this is how we look out for things, right? To say, let's have an assessment, what we're doing here, as opposed to saying, I just call sin, good. Let's be like, hey, what's the fruit, right? Like, I don't want to label it. I'm going to let God manifest what it is. Anyhow, thanks for that comment, Bray. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, with this passage here, it's just cool to think about that God loved us and carried us before we came to this earth, that there was a pre-existence, that we have always had these immortal spirits. We've been given a body to become a soul, and this mortal body will be perfected, and Isaiah talked about this before, right? Like our bodies will not grow weary, that we'll soar on wings like eagles, and so Isaiah here is talking about how, like, this is the journey that you had, is that God loved you from the beginning, right? Once loved, always loved. Great theological book to talk about kind of the concept of God's plan for all of us to return to heaven and all of us to get back to him. And that he's going to, not only is he our God before we were born, he's our God when we're born, he's our God throughout our life, and then of course our God again in heaven. That at no point did he stop being our God just because it's hazy right now, because it's complicated right now. At no point does he leave us. We may divert from him, but he is always with us. Yeah, I just really like that one here. Let me go ahead and look up the next bit here. Oh, this is from Proverbs. Let's make sure I put this on the screen. Share this one. So many ads. The wise are mightier than the strong, and those with knowledge grow stronger and stronger. So don't go to war without wise guidance. Victory depends on having many advisors. Really, I'm leading off with some really challenging verses, and we got Zach. Hey, Zach, what's going on, my man?
Hey, howdy.
Hey, appreciate having you around. Thanks for not making me do this solo. I always need some help.
Yeah, it was actually kind of cool to watch you go solo. So
it'll be better with you. It was better with you last week. It will be better with you again this week. I appreciate that. This is a challenging verse right here in Proverbs. The wise are mightier than the strong, and those with knowledge grow stronger and stronger. So don't go to war without wise guidance. Victory depends on having many advisors. I think seeking out different opinions is like one of the most it's rewarding, but it's one of the most challenging things that I think we can get, because our tendency, of course, neurologically, is to surround ourselves with people who agree with what we think, right? And in many ways, there's a protection in that. I don't want to surround myself with people who wish to do me harm, obviously. But if I can have one person and just say, hey, you wish to do me harm, maybe I need to understand why. Let's talk to you about that. Now, that's an extreme circumstance, but we talk about, the why are the wise mightier than the strong? It's not, the strong can overpower us, but ultimately brains is going to win over brawn in the end, because you know how to fight, right? This is when they teach martial arts. Why is it that these martial artists are capable of winning a fight? against somebody who is stronger and bigger than them. They use their own strengths against them. It's a matter of wisdom, less so a matter of physical prowess. It's knowledge. Oh, if you're in this situation, here's what you do. It's not a matter of, bulk up, get stronger, get punch harder, whatever, right? Like, and so
Mm.
that's the importance of these. This is why, self-defense training for women and kids is actually fantastic, right? Because it teaches them you can win a fight against somebody that is like a bajillion times bigger than you or faster than you. Somebody can run you down. You can still win that fight because as long as they are strong, you use your wisdom, you're stronger than them. So that's part one.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I just think seeking out different points of view is critical. And it is difficult. It is uncomfortable, right? Seeking out somebody. I know for me, the tough ones that I have, and Bray in the comments here, actually, Bray says, "What up, friend?" to you, Zach, or
Hey,
"Hey,
bro.
what up, friend?" I don't want to cut that part out. That's like our
What up?
that's like our official greeting. But like Bray was really helpful to me because I was like, man, I do not understand where anti-Semitism comes from, right? And I was just like, I can't talk effectively about it unless I understand where it comes from, right? And so Bray
Mhm.
really helped me out to kind of clue me into like some of that wisdom. Now listen, it's not wise to be anti-Semitic. The goal was not to change my mind, but at least to understand where those people are coming from. And I am a better person and better able to argue or change, not argue, but change somebody's mind about, anti-Semitism and bigotry by knowing and understanding those conversations from somebody who is anti-Semitic, and so that it's been important to me. Now, we obviously don't want to let it change us. Sometimes bad advice is bad advice, but understanding even bad things can help us grow a lot. Zach, obviously you are somebody who is surrounded by people with a lot of different points of view, especially politically. But somebody,
Oh yeah.
I know between our group and your other groups that you find yourself on the in betweens a lot. But I,
Well,
I would assume that you can see some of this wisdom. I would hope.
that's the brilliance of this, really, if you think about it. That's why you want to have several different groups that you're into, because not everybody's going to be the same. Nobody thinks alike. You don't want to be stuck in an echo chamber, because I mean, like let's use the anti-Semitism. I mean, with politics of the day and everything that's surrounding Israel and social media, and I mean, I don't even like getting on X anymore because it's always a fight. I get on social media, specifically X, and my algorithm is just full blown like hate the Jews this, hate the Jews that, and then the next line is give your body, mind, and soul to Israel, or it's like no, let's slow our roll. Like who?
Right.
I mean, there's bad in on both sides here. One, we shouldn't be hating. That's I mean, that's where we need to call out and we need to do what Jesus said. Rebuke all that hatred, all that evil, all that sin that isn't being repented. And so anti-Semitism is just what it is. It's hate. But then on the other side, you have another gravitation of hate for those who are perceived anti-Semitic, and we need to wise up a little bit and understand everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
understanding perspectives. I think in communication we don't listen till we feel
Mm-hmm.
heard, right? Like it's just how brains work. And so
Yeah.
like you mentioned with social media, I think like we're arguing in ways that all of us know are ineffective, right? Like we know
Oh
people don't
yeah.
listen until they feel heard. And so the point, it's funny, we talk about virtue signaling, but basically the entire thing is just virtue signaling. People aren't there to change anybody's mind because the way we communicate is not to say, hey, listen, you guys who believe this, I believe something differently, but let me steel man your point first. Let me do my best to represent your side first. Do I have this right? Help me explain it, right? Like it's not good for
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, it's good for chastising. And
Yeah.
and unfortunately, like you said, the algorithms encourage it, and it kind of makes me sick because I don't I I understand that people, like, whatever the stat is, like, they're like 8 times more likely to interact with what they hate than what they love. But I'm just
Mhm.
not one of those people. Like, I get very exhausted by being, like, sickened by surrounding myself with bad stuff. And so I don't know. I guess for me, I think it's unhealthy. We've seen it's manifestly be unhealthy.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think social media could be such a good tool, but I wish, as opposed to tooling the algorithms to what gets the most clicks, it would be nice if they, and I'm aware they would have to take a personal sacrifice, but to surround people with stuff that they love and maybe different perspectives that aren't aggressively against their own perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah. Another good one that I had here.
I I will add on that too, and
Yeah, do it.
actually what you were discussing out of Ephesians as well. But I'm reading Confessions by Saint Augustine, and on page 58 of which is book 2 in my book, he has a line starts, "For pride causes us to feel superior." I mean, then he goes on, "Whereas you alone are the most high God above all things." But this line resonates, "For pride causes us to feel superior." And I think that's the issue right now, right there. And that goes very well with that Proverbs verse. We let our pride get the most of us. Mm.
Yeah. There's a lot of depth there because I think when
Mhm.
we, we do, there are points of view that are superior, right? Like 2 plus 2 equals
Mhm.
4, right? Like that's a superior to 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? Or 2 plus 3 equals
Mhm.
4. Sorry. Both. Anyway, that
Common Core.
yeah, freaking Common Core math. I'm a public school kid. It shows. No, I think that there's an important element here of just saying, like, let's say you do have a superior point of view, but should that make you prideful, or should that make you
Mhm.
blessed that you've had the education, that you've had the advantages that you've had, that you had people that reinforced these good decisions for you, right? Like, are you a fundamentally better person than these other people who may have wrong information and opinions, ideas, but the only difference between you and them is circumstance, right? Like
Mhm.
how you're born, what the nature of it is. Now, I'm not anti-agency, I'm not anti-free will. I do think people are a bit individualistic more so than that. But I think almost all of us can craft a scenario in our head that would cause us to sin. And then we just need to imagine that we're somebody else, and we are constantly caught in these scenarios that cause us to sin or cause us to make mistakes or something like that. So, like, yeah, like there's nothing really makes us better. I think Paul and Jesus each are like, what, you think you're better than the rocks, even, like, not even so much better
Mhm.
than other people. We're not even better than like stones, right? Like, we are dust in the wind that God has elected to animate. And instead of feeling blessed, instead we try to talk about how much better we are than other pieces of dust in the wind, which is just nonsense. Not like St. Augustine's alluded to there. None of it is to our glory. All of it's to God's
Mhm.
glory. And we should
Yep.
be grateful and humble when we find ourselves with a superior point of view or something like that. Humble for actually being chosen to have God teach us that, as instead of
Yep.
making it puff us up and just being like, oh yeah, we're a little bit better than everybody else.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Bray said it's possible to surround yourself with what you hate out of love or humility, but that's a rare mindset in the digital age. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot, that the apostles went into hostile territories, and that was certainly out of love, and they certainly were surrounded by people who didn't, well, politicians who didn't like them. They were loved by the people, but yeah, they were in the face of hate. But yeah, like, yeah, it's rare for
Mhm.
us to walk into places, preach love, and be willing to accept the violence that is done to us because of that love.
Mm.
Yeah. One big one here. So this actually verse, I'm glad we got to it. This has come up a lot within the Love First Christians. Um, don't don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still
Mm.
angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. And this verse
Ah,
has
I s
changed. my life. Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I was about. I struggle with this all the time. So,
it it's a toughie because we want the other person to let go first, right? And what happens if
mm-hmm,
we wait for that? Well, a lot of times the sun sets and both of us we're playing chicken, right? We're like, you give up first, or
mm-hmm.
you give up first. And because neither of us does, we both get hit by a train, right? Like this
Yep,
anger train that
yep.
comes through because we both want to say, oh, I'm not going to let it go first. We don't see it as strong, but we see it as weakness, right? As opposed to
Mm-hmm,
what I mean, literal fruit of the spirit is gentleness, right? To
mm-hmm,
say, hey, listen, what you did may have still hurt me, but you're still a child of God. I still love you. I'm not going to let this be upset with you. Now, this verse obviously understands that you're a human being. It still allows you to feel that anger, right, in the moment,
mm-hmm,
but it doesn't want you to. The way it says this, don't let the sun go down on it. Don't sleep with it, right? Like because then you're just going to get this restless, reinforced, angry sleeping. I had a fight with a family member. This was about a year ago. A family member who I love to death and has been influential in my life, but this fight was messed me up and I just couldn't sleep. Like I was just so whatever. And I remember just the next day just being like, man, I don't care what it takes, but we got to put this to bed somehow, right? Like
mm-hmm,
what it is, like because if I go to sleep with that anger and I just allow it to fester, it just that like it says, it gives a foothold to the devil if I let that happen. That the devil is just going to
mm-hmm.
make you do all kinds of things. And we see this politically, especially to say somebody gives a little bit of that foothold to the devil, and then like a year away from when that happens, they've gone like full blown racist or something. You're just like, whoa, this was just like a
Yeah,
little like,
yep.
you went from like an immigrant robbed this store and I'm really upset about the robbery to being like, deport every immigrant, right? Like without any, because you
Mm.
gave the devil that foothold and they completely transformed your mentality, and
Mm.
anyway, any thoughts about that?
No, you hit it right there, actually.
Oh man, you got to expound a little bit, otherwise I'm in
Yeah.
trouble with me trying to look stuff up.
Uh,
Let me see here.
but I mean, yeah, you did. You hit it right there. I mean, when anger festers, the devil takes a hold of you when you start feeling the physical symptoms that anger can cause. All that stress and that rage, and the next thing if you go to bed angry and you wake up angry, then eventually you're going to start feeling that anger psychosomatically, and your stomach's upset, you got ulcers or whatever. I mean, you start feeling it. Panic attacks out of the blue. I mean,
Yeah.
some scary stuff. So I mean, we shouldn't fester on anger. If it was happens to be a Mexican immigrant that robbed the store, then don't hate the Mexican. Hate the policies that let him jump the border illegally and get away with it, and hate the fact that he actually committed sin on his own regard. Hate the sin. Don't hate him.
Yeah. Bray says hatred is born from misunderstanding or miscommunication. If we re-engage with mercy, we'll often find the offense we took was unintended. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like and how often do we find when we talk
Beautiful.
about robberies that these robberies were done out of desperation, right? People need things and they're,
Hmm.
you know, how, if we're not like Jesus said, if we're not willing to love our enemies, then what's the point? Everybody loves their friends. The Christianity is then fundamentally undifferent than everything else in the world. You know,
Exactly.
this is the unique calling for us, is for us to say, I'm gonna maybe the other person deserves to be angry, right? Like deserves anger, but we're gonna withhold what they deserve in order to make a future come about that is better, right? Like it's a focus not on just evenness, but on true justice, on true like because justice would be healing the wound, right? We heal the wound as opposed to poking out everybody's eyes. Um, here we go. Oh, that made me bigger. I didn't want to do that. Here we go. Another one here from Isaiah. The Lord says the captives of warriors will be released and the plunder of tyrants will be retrieved. For I will fight those who fight you, and I will save your children. I will feed your enemies with their own flesh. They will be drunk with rivers of their own blood. And all the world will know that I, the Lord, am your Savior and your Redeemer, the Mighty One of Israel. So there are two major parts to this one here. The captives of warriors will be released, and the plunder of tyrants will be retrieved, right? So, so for those who don't know and are just joining us, Israel did not have a jailing policy under the Mosaic Law. There was the death sentence, and then there was restitution, and nothing in between. There was no prison, right? God frequently throughout the Old and New Testament uses this over and over again, that we create these prison systems, and these systems were not meant to exist. They are not good for people. They are not healthy. Why is it we have these awful recidivism rates? Because we just create the problem more, right? Like we get further into it. And so either the person is to be cast out, like exiled, killed, whatever. As Jesus said, we're kind of in a testament now where we're against the capital punishment, but playing this rule here, still within the Old Testament. If we're going to have it, then either do that or let them go, right? That these people need to be released so that they can participate within society. Making it so they can't participate with it is wrong. The second part here, one that I know you and I both relate to, Zach, the plunder of tyrants will be retrieved, right? Like that. This is the evenness, that whoever stole your stuff, it is going to return back to where it goes. Isaiah talks about frequently. I think I'll get to a few of them when we read it, but he mentions on multiple occasions talking about getting the fruit of your own labor. If you worked for it, you get it. You are drinking off your own grapevine, right? Like this is, if it's your vineyard, you get your fair share of the work. And Isaiah has a huge problem with what Israel has done because one, they've established the prison system. I already went over that. And two, they've allowed people to aggressively tax them. And where have they outsourced it? Isaiah went over this already. Military, right? They decided to take all that taxation and invest in military and armaments as opposed to empowering their own people. And as a result, they become a military state, which is about to doom them. And so what they should have done, what Jesus is going to do when the days are right, to say, hey, listen, this jail system, gone, right? We don't jail people anymore. We fix them. We heal them. We're not there to imprison people. And number two, we return whatever was stolen, that people are going to get what they deserved, what the works, that the stuff that they earned is theirs and theirs alone. And I'm tired of bloodsuckers feasting off of them, both in big business and in politics in this case. I'll let you interject there, Zach, because the second part here is nothing like that first part.
Yeah, pretty much. It's definitely prophecy. And we definitely are. It's amazing what you can take, because I mean, obviously, prophecy then establishes prophecy intermediate to the contemporary of, say, Jesus's time or even before. But it's amazing what you can look into. Say, Isaiah right here, the captive of warriors will be released, and see the parallel between the systems that we put in play today. So I mean, and the plunder of tyrants to be retrieved. I mean, could that mean that what is occurring now is what is returned in the future when he returns, or when he brings the glory of heaven unified with earth once again? We have our King return. Nobody is to know. Obviously, only God knows that, but perhaps that's what it's telling us right there, that balance will be restored effectively. That's where I look at this. Balance will effectively be restored in some capacity, whether it's here on this earth or in the coming days ahead towards the end when Christ returns.
Yeah, Caesar will actually get what is due Caesar, which is Precious little.
Love, which
Bray
is
says,
love.
right. Unfortunately, our culture uses incarceration for restitution via state-sponsored slavery. I know people who work for years in stockade to pay off a $1,500 due. Yeah, like no amount of investigation to within our prison system can possibly justify the evils that we've perpetrated. They're terrible. The second part here I also find interesting. I will feed your enemies with their own flesh. They will be drunk with rivers of their own blood. Now, why does this happen? Well, first of all, God saved the children, so the enemies can't feed on the children. Secondly, you took their prisoners, so they can't feed on the prison labor. And third, you took all the stuff that they had stolen, right? So those are the 3 points that God has robbed them of. Well, without access to your children, without access to your stuff, and without access to you as a prisoner, what do your enemies have left to do? Well, with Satan, what's he going to do? He's parasitic. He needs a healthy host. If without that, all they're going to do is feed on their own flesh, drunk with rivers of their own blood, right? That they only know war. And so they will war on themselves because God has robbed them of the opportunity to war on innocent people. They are going to feast on themselves because God has robbed them of the ability to steal your stuff. And so this is, I think it's a beautiful concept here. It's kind of colorful. And so maybe it might strike as a little obscene or vulgar, but I like this analogy because it's like, this is the nature of evil, is that it is parasitic, it is destructive. And what Jesus is going to do is he doesn't need to show up as a destroyer. All he needs to do is protect his people, and sin will destroy itself. It is a destructive philosophy. Any thoughts there, Zach?
I'm thinking of the world that we live in today because of all the polarization and the anger and the hate against each other. I mean, so I'm leading on a correlation of today. I'm not saying that Jesus is coming tomorrow, guys. So I mean, not going deep into. I mean, this verse right here is actually kind of a dispensationalist wet dream. I'm not gonna lie, but but that's where I look at it. I mean, right there is hate, anger, polarization, division. We are on the cusp of that. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do with it? I say we turn ourselves to Christ and understand that he will guide us and bring us into peace. And anybody who doesn't is going to cannibalize themselves to the sin that they're committing, the hate that they're administering because of all the anger that just because of the anger really that we're susceptible to. And some of it's manufactured, but but then you also have personal anger, personal grudges.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's see here. Going on to my next one here. Promises of Israel's restoration. This is again from Isaiah. At just the right time, I will respond to you. On the day of salvation, I will help you. I will protect you and give you to the people as my covenant with them. Through you, I will reestablish the land of Israel and assign it to its own people again. I will say to the prisoners, come out in freedom, and to those in darkness, come into the light. They will be my sheep, grazing in green pastures and on hills that were previously bare. They will neither hunger nor thirst. The searing sun will not reach them anymore. For the Lord in his mercy will lead them. He will lead them beside cool waters. And I will make my mountains into level paths for them. The highways will be raised above the valleys. See, my people will return from far away, from lands to the north and west, and from as far south as Egypt. So there's a few elements here. One is blatant multiculturalism, which is critical for God's church. Obviously, you can't read through Paul without understanding the importance of blending cultures, that it is not one culture versus another.
Amen.
You know, that God will sit up there and be like, hey, listen, some people, kosher law is great and it feels good for their soul. And I made them that way, right? They feel good when they're practicing this law. Some people I didn't make that way. Nobody's broken. We're just different. Right. So like you people here that don't practice kosher law, don't anger these guys, don't do anything intentional to put them over the top. And then you guys who are practicing kosher the law, maybe just don't get offended, right? Like all the time. Maybe don't act like you're better than anybody. We're all just different. And so we have here that Israel is becoming a multinational nation. That it is a collection, obviously, of all of God's children from across the seas. Right. I like that it specifies lands to the north and west. Well, they're connected to the east already in Asia, but what's north is across, you got across the Mediterranean, you've got Africa here, and then you've got the west in Americas as well, right? That we got to gather all these people together. And so there's that. The other part here that is critical is that what's happening, because this is the day of salvation, right? So what we're talking about here is now post-apocalypse, post-rapture, right? Like this is the day when people are saved. And this is one where he says to the prisoners, they aren't just political prisoners anymore. These are people in hell, right? These are people in that outer darkness. And he says, come into the light. And we have this is mentioned in Peter, obviously, when Jesus commits the harrowing of hell and saves people who are in hell. We will get to another verse later on from this reading. I believe it's in Ephesians, or is it in Isaiah? I don't know. But it's basically every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. We hear that verse a lot, but who is it for? It's for those above the earth, for those on the earth, and for under the earth as well. That all these people, even people who have perished already, will end up saying, God is my Lord, right? Like he is the king. And the what is going to lead to us eventually is these paths beside cool waters, right? These mountainous territories. Because let's be honest, people don't usually sin just for fun, right? Like God admits, whose mountain is it? It's his, right? God made these difficult times for us. And he is going to take away those difficult times so that when even like corrupt sinners, and we just say, oh, they're bad people for sinning. But if we remove all the difficulties that God has given us, that they won't choose sin when compared to this wonderful life. We see this with the primitive church. Do you want to continue serving Rome and grind away? Or do you want to be part of this primitive church, which is full of love and celebration and goodness? And people given that option, without coercion, will usually take that option, I don't know. I really like this because it's I think I'm big on universalism, obviously. I like the idea of salvation for people who maybe never heard the word of God or who didn't have the chance or who got into a fight or let's be honest. I mean, as Love First Christians, we have a ton of people in this group with religious trauma that they're giving Christianity a second try, and Christians drove them away the first time. God still loves those people. And even if they go to their grave just thinking like what they think God is this terrible thing, that God is not going to let that be the end of the story, that they're going to be able to see God's love. They're going to be able to see the green pastures. They're going to be able to see the mountains that kept them away from anything good in this life be smoothed and say, oh, this is the way to heaven, and that opportunity to me, it's a big deal to me. And yeah, I don't know. I really like this passage. Any thoughts you have about it, Zach?
Oh, everybody. Well, it's echoing what is to come, obviously, which is Israel's captivity and exile in Babylon. And what I love about it is we all have to go through our own Babylonian captivity. So using that example, people that have had their trauma, their negative effects within the church and have stepped away, that could be considered your captivity, because eventually God will shine down and reign supreme in guiding you back into the light. You will return back to the land of Israel. So, I mean, I love the verse. It really is. It echoes Babylonian captivity that is to come, but you can use it for each and every one of our lives as our own, because we exile ourselves, whether we do it on our own or through our own culture.
Yeah. It's Isaiah especially is so pertinent to ourselves
Mhm.
because he's predicting past it, right? Like he predicts not only Jesus and
Mhm.
like the immediate what happens to Israel in the immediate time, but predicts both like revelatory time. So we got like the end of the world, but then predicts the
Mhm.
times between like Jesus and now. And so many of these verses resonate with me because they were meant for me, right? This is like
Yeah.
a passage in the
Yep.
Bible that's actually written like, oh yeah, you guys currently, here's what you're going to be going through.
Mhm.
Bray says something. Bray, I think I might have the wrong name here, but there might be a second Barabbas. But he says, I love this one because of what happened at Calgary. Barabbas fought with swords, Jesus fought with words, and not only won, but brought Barabbas out of the darkness and into the light. I know Barabbas was the criminal that they released, right? And so I'm wondering
Mhm.
if, but what was the name? I think they named the servant. Was he named Barabbas too? The guy who got his ear cut off with the sword?
I believe
Clarify.
so. Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. Clarify it for
Let
me,
me.
Bray. I could be wrong. Yeah. But yeah, y'all look that up. I am going to, while we're looking at that, find this next verse here. This is one that's I think really challenging for all of us right now because we're surrounded by it. But this particular verse, now this first part's easy. Let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Such sins have no place among God's people. Yeah, we're used to this, right? We're
Mhm.
Christians. We're not supposed to do any of that stuff. Obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes. These are not for you. Instead, let there be thankfulness to God. There is a lot of humor today, and I think a lot of what we've surrounded ourselves where we almost feel like nothing is funny unless it's obscene or coarse or foolish. And that's
You're
an
taking away my.
unfortunate place. Sorry,
You're
what?
taking away my fun. Yeah, God's taking away my fun.
Yeah, right. God's being the fun police or whatever over here. Yeah. Like I think the thing about this is like I mean Paul is not above telling what in Ephesians I don't have this quoted but or is it Philippians he says he wishes the mutilators would mutilate themselves, right? Like obviously that's a joke,
Mhm.
right? Like you want to cut other people's like so is he telling like what we would call like a coarse joke? I guess, right? But like
Mhm.
his heart's in the right place a little bit. So we do need to kind of talk about this though and think about this because I have seen people who went down the wrong path and it started as humor for them. It started as just, oh, it's just funny. I don't believe any of this stuff. It's just whatever. And then they ended up becoming, unfortunately, in one particular instance I can think of, the person actually became a full-on Nazi, like embraced Nazism, like believes
Mhm.
himself to be a Nazi, has done the Zig Heil, like I mean, way over the top, right? Like, and where
Mhm.
it started was actually I really liked the guy's memes. That's how I met the guy. Was he made a bunch of like liberty memes, and I was like, oh man, I'm a liberty guy. I love the memes. This is all really cool. And then what happened was this jokes got a hold of him, and similar to like what we talked about with the anger getting a foothold that Paul has already talked
Mhm.
about earlier that sometimes this kind of bad humor can get a foothold as well, right? Like
Mhm.
one of the ways that I like to explain this to people, because people be like, why did this guy get canceled for making a racist joke, but Family Guy didn't? Well, that's pretty easy to explain. People who know the person who got like canceled doesn't know what side they're actually on. Usually they keep that obscure or they, dog whistle or something like that constantly. Everybody knows Seth MacFarlane's not racist, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
knows that those writers aren't bigoted. So when they tell a bigoted joke, people don't think, oh, they must really actually hate black people or something like that. Right. It comes off. And first of all, Peter Griffin is like stupid, right? Like another good example is like
Mhm.
South Park. Cartman has some quotes like have you ever I have seen people that sometimes idolize like Rick from Rick and Morty or Cartman from South Park or Peter from like Family Guy. And it's like, these are the villains, right? Like this, they are written because they are villaged, because it is stupid. And so I think what it is when the joke is directed at the authority or at stupid people or bigoted stuff, right? Like all that stuff.
Mhm.
I think fair game, right? You're making fun of bigotry by having your stupid or evil character embrace bigotry.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Whereas it's different when there's somebody who is maybe bigoted themselves telling a bigoted joke, that it becomes less funny. And so it's pretty easy to navigate the world like that. Now, I can't say this doesn't talk about bigotry. It just specifically says obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes. These are not for you. And we should try to be more wholesome in general. I think I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting for maybe the right way to tell a dirty joke. But I would like for Christians to kind of get away from that as much as we can. Jokes don't have to only have shock value. They don't only have to be edgy. There's plenty of jokes that are just funny, right? And that's okay. And so I think if we have a reliance on saying the dirtiest, nastiest, grossest thing, then that, first of all, that humor is very easy, but it's also very terminating. We're basically doing the same joke every time, and then it becomes less funny. We become more serious, and then it starts to get a foothold in our hearts. I've talked a lot, Zach, but your thoughts about this one here?
Oh, my favorite joke is taking 2 Kings 2. Me and my buddy Andrew do this all the time, because it's 2 Kings 2, 23, 24, when Elisha's on his way to Bethel and gets poked fun of by all those young strapling lads, and then the 2 bears come out. Like, go forth, bald. And I goof off with Andrew all the time, because he's my age, which is 35, and I got hair, and he's balding. He's been balding since he was 18. So I get his goat on that. He's like, yeah, 2 she bears, huh? I'm like, go forth, bald head. You're gonna get eaten.
I've been on the wrong end of a lot of bald jokes, so I get it. So I wanted to bring up one here, and this is going to be a pretty. This one is pretty well discussed. Why did I make myself big again? Why do I keep doing that? I don't want to be big. Oh, before we move on too much, Bray says, this is the equivalent of seeing someone tell a person to off themselves and saying you first. Coarse joke ultimately, but it occasionally puts someone back in square. Yeah, like it's just it's repaying nastiness for nastiness. And we are called to give coats to our enemies here. So this is a big one here. First of all, there's a couple things to remember. First of all, this header doesn't actually exist. So we need to remember this here. Who is supposed to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ? It's not just husbands and wives, because this was added entirely. In fact, Paul hasn't talked about husbands and wives until here. So what he's asking is for the entire church to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. He even says, and further, right? So he's not referencing what's coming after. He's referencing what came before. And so what he's talking about is the church. We are all to submit to one each other out of reverence for Christ. Now, there's a big problem here with the way this gets translated. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. We have seen this verse used to justify sexual assault. We've used it to justify that, first of all, that it's not possible to rape your spouse because your wife is supposed to submit to you and do whatever you want. I have major issues with that for obvious reasons, but I say obvious reasons, yet we at the Love First Christians have believers whose husbands actually did sexually assault them using this as a guiding light. And unfortunately, it's something that we have notable conservative Christians teaching right now. And that is really unfortunate. So let's break this down a little bit. First of all, I'm going to get to the second part here. For husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her, right? So husbands are supposed to submit to their wives as well, right? Everybody's supposed to submit to everybody within the church, first of all, right? Now, with that in mind, does that mean you let everybody in this church sexually assault you because you submitted to them? Of course not. That's idiotic, right? That's not possible in a marriage. It's not possible outside of a marriage. That's a stupid standard regardless. But also, this is what the husband's supposed. The husband is submitting as well, giving his life up, his whole life up, both body, soul, everything that you would say that to the wife as well. So just because the word submit doesn't get used for the husband, Christ makes it clear that they are supposed to give up their entire lives for their wives as well. This is not a one-way street. Well, wives, submit to your husbands and do whatever I say. Okay, well then husbands do the exact same thing if that's the way you're going to interpret it. That obviously that's not right. The second part that I wanted to bring
Mm-hmm.
up here, which is more important, and this is the Interlinear Bible. This is the actual translation of the as close as we get to the original context here. Where does the word submit appear on this page? Nowhere. This was entirely added later on. And so this word here, we're supposed to do to your husbands as you do to the Lord. So, you know, as you treat others, that's the way, right? That's the way you should be treated. We added this word submit, unfortunately, because we want women to be submissive. And that's a really unfortunate part of church history, but it is not an accurate part of church history. That word submit doesn't actually appear. Now, it does appear in the previous verse, in that we're supposed to submit to each other. But the idea that wives have an additional obligation to submit, or that there's some kind of context that we would listen, it essentially says, do to your husband as you would to the Lord. If you wouldn't let the Lord sexually assault you, then you still aren't supposed to let your husband sexually assault you either, right? Like if Jesus is not going to pressure you into a weird sexual situation, then you're not supposed to let your husband do it either. This is just saying that you treat others as though they're all God, which we have plenty of precedent for, right? Like you treat the least of these as though they are God, right? That is our calling as Christians, right? So in a way, we're all supposed to submit to each other. But in that one very specific way, we have actually added a word to try and justify, unfortunately, a lot of terrible things to women that we shouldn't be doing. I just think it's important to correct that. As Christians, we should be careful about how we are reading these verses. Obviously, there was not a big sexual assault situation within the early church towards women. And so if we read it that way, we're not reading it the way that they interpret it. I've talked a lot, Zach, but any thoughts that you have about this?
That's pretty much my thought. I mean, if you want to take it literal to the Bible, a man and a woman are partnership. It's a partnership. I mean, and it's a union with God. I mean, it really is a reflection of the triune. So you take it to the submittance idea, wife to submit to her husband. The husband also should submit to her. Just remember that it was Adam who was created first, but it was through Adam that God created Eve. So they're literally a part of you. Woman is a part of man. So we should act it. We're both equal, I mean, with each other on that aspect, rather than the man was first, so the man has the top dog alpha. So woman, bow to me. So
it's yeah. Go ahead.
No, that was about it. I mean, I don't understand. I think a lot of it, I think, it's lost in translation. So, because I mean, you got what 30,000 different manuscript variants, right? And you have church that's 2,000 years old. You're gonna have lost in translation, and I mean, Hebrew, Aramaic for the most of the Old Testament, some of the New Testament, mostly Greek for the Septuagint. I mean, and then you start elevating, eventually have the Latin Vulgate, and then you have other languages breaking away from Latin. I mean, so I think a lot of it has a lot to do with translation and just losing what meanings are. And then I think a lot of it's just different cultures converging as Christianity begins to expand, and a little bit of this culture meshes in with this culture, and then you get like a vacuum.
One of the heaviest lessons I learned when I was taking theology classes was things like 40 days and 40 nights did not mean 40 days and 40 nights. It means some time passes, right? Like, and I'm over here like trying to calculate like exact days, and it's like, no, that's a saying, right? Like that's, and then they would say things like, and everybody came, and it's like, well, not everybody, like it just means a lot of people came, right? But these are just terms that we use, you know. In English, we have such weird sayings as well, right? Like, give me a second. What if we translated that literally, right? Every time, oh, it's more than 1 second. Well, okay, no, it just give me a minute. Oh, is it exactly 60 seconds? Right? Like we do this all the time as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail is probably one of the silliest, weirdest things that our grandparents' generation said. But yeah, like nobody's timing out shakes of a lamb's tail. They just mean they'll be back real quick. And so, like, I think this is why anthropology is so important, because we want to read these
Mm-hmm.
verses the way that they were read back then, not
Yeah.
the way we read them now. And so this is why I go back to talking about when people say, oh, I think Romans 13 is talking about obeying the government no matter what. And it's like, okay, so when the apostles were getting crucified for breaking the law, do you think they interpreted Romans 13 the same way that you're reading it right now, right? Like this is important for us to kind of say, oh, maybe I didn't understand then. Maybe I'm reading it with a modern lens. Maybe there's some work I need to do and some digging I need to do into this.
Mm-hmm.
Bray says a couple here, one of which I addressed. The second half about husbands loving and respecting their wives as they do Christ always gets left out. I know, isn't that weird that like we ask wives to fulfill their end of the bargain, but husbands, not so much. Bray says the word for submit can easily be translated to assign authority, which feels more like properly vetting the person before marriage as opposed to going along with whatever after a fun night and a shotgun wedding. Yeah, that yeah, be careful about who we assign authority to. I did want to do a full read on a couple parts of Isaiah here, because this is where he testifies about Jesus and what's coming for Jesus. So this big one here. See, let me pull up. Yeah. See, my servant will prosper. He will be highly exalted. But many were amazed when they saw him. His face was so disfigured, he seemed hardly human. And from his appearance, one would scarcely know he was a man. So this is specifically talking about his beating before crucifixion, right? That the harm they inflicted. And he will startle many nations. Kings will stand speechless in his presence, for they will see what they had not been told. They will understand what they had not heard about. Huge wording here is incredible with Isaiah. Bray, I know you're in the comments. This is our favorite book of the Bible, and it's for reasons like this. So we have to keep in mind that at the moment Christ died was when the Romans said that really was the Son of God. It wasn't before. It was after, right? So it's after they brutalized this man that the Romans made that the king stood speechless in his presence, that the nations became startled. This is when it started to catch on with the Romans, because before that, Jesus was just some fringe cult in the middle of Israel. It had nothing to do with Rome. But the Romans who enacted the execution took this back with them and were like, the guy we killed, I think, was the Son of God. Like, he was incredible. He was graceful in crucifixion, right? How many people had they crucified prior to this? That's a warring nation, right? Like they were not shy about killing people, right? And and so they would kill people. And so, but this guy they killed wasn't like anybody else. Gracious to them, forgiving them, asking for forgiveness for them. They hadn't seen anything like that. And how is this directly translated here for Isaiah? Not they will hear what they had not been told. They will see what they had not been told. They didn't hear of Christ. They saw what they never heard about, right? They witnessed Christ. They bore witness to this here. They understand what they had not heard about. To me, absolutely incredible, right? Because it's not that they got preached to. It was that they got to witness it, and this is what happened. And then the next this section, this is one of the worst chapter breaks ever in the book of the Bible, because it's clearly like the same. But anyway, who has believed our message? To whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm? My servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. There was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised and we did not care. Yet it was our weakness he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. And we thought his troubles were a punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. But he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was beaten so we could be made whole. He was whipped so we could be healed. All of us, this is a famous verse now, all of us like sheep have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own, yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. He was oppressed and treated harshly, yet he never said a word. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep in silent before the shearers, he did not open his mouth. Unjustly condemned, he was led away. No one cared that he died without descendants, that his life was cut short in midstream. But he was struck down for the rebellion of my people. He had done no wrong, and he had never deceived anyone. But he was buried like a criminal. He was put in a rich man's grave. But it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. Yet when his life is made an offering for sin, he will have many descendants. He will enjoy a long life, and the Lord's good plan will prosper in his hands. When he sees all that is accomplished by his anguish, he will be satisfied. And because of his experience, my righteous servant will make it possible for many to be counted righteous, for he will bear all their sins. I will give him the honors of a victorious soldier because he exposed himself to death. He was counted among the rebels. He bore the sins of many and interceded for the rebels. An incredible passage. First of all, we have to remember Isaiah was, and factually, written before Jesus Christ, which is a heck of a prediction that he makes about Jesus here. These are very specific, right? Like talking about being put in a rich man's grave, like after being buried as a criminal. Like, how would you make that prediction? Yeah, how would you make that prediction? How would you know if he's crucified like a criminal that he was put in a rich man's grave, right? Like, mind-blowing stuff. But outside of like the magic of Isaiah just knowing the future, right? I think he just says some incredible things throughout this whole thing that is just talking about how like it's for all of us. We've already kind of talked about this universalism, right? That he's not just dying for a couple people or just the ones who were pretty good but had a couple of mistakes, that this is for everybody here. He was acquainted with our deepest grief, right? Like that he knew what it was like to lose, to stub a toe, to have something infected, to get sick, to have diarrhea, to get a cold, right? Like, and then to lose a parent, to lose a sibling, to lose children, to lose his cousin, as in the case of Lazarus, to lose a family member. Understand that he came here and knows this pain. And that even if we turned our back on him and he didn't have to come acquainted with this grief, that he sacrificed himself for us anyway, like a green shoot, like a root in dry ground, like just popping up out of nowhere. Because most people in Christ's situation dry up, right? And Jesus has mercy on them because he says, of course they're going to dry up. It's in dry ground, right? Like, I understand why a lot of people turn away from God, but this is why he did it, right? He's going to be that shoot that's like, I don't need the same fertilizer as everybody else. I'm God, right? I'm the Lord. And I'm going to be able to survive in this scenario where most people would crush, most people would, in fact, think everybody else would break. Everybody else would buckle under the pressure. And that's okay. That's what made him God. You know, like it's okay for us to say, I wouldn't have been able to handle that. He's the only one who is able to handle it. And I don't know. I love this whole passage. Anything you have to say about it, Zach?
I mean, he stood up in the Sanhedrin and literally admitted, yeah, I'm God. And I will be raised to the right hand of power. And any of us that was in his shoes say, yeah, we would have folded, because first off, it'd be a lie. And you got me. Secondly, we would want to hope that maybe you'll go lenient on me for my blasphemies. I mean, and he stood up before the court of the Sanhedrin and basically just took it because it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And then the Romans, jeez, no Pete's. I'm gonna go into the bloody, vicious parts. How many lashes did they usually give?
39.
I forget what it says. 39. That's right. Yeah.
Because they believe 40 would kill them. Yeah.
40. Yeah. I mean, take that like a champ.
Wait, is it 29? Hang on.
I think it might be 39. I think it is 39.
Is 39? Did I have it right? Yep, 39. Why did I second guess myself? Why do I do that? Anyway, sorry, continue.
But I mean, just think if we were in that position. I mean, they don't whip you 40 times because they don't want to kill you. They want to punish you. But many of us would probably buckle and drop dead after 10 lashes. So, it takes a lot to prove that you are more than just your human nature, in my opinion. I think that right there, that theater is what truly fulfills that who Jesus is. So, and Isaiah just hits it. He hits it 400 years into the past.
He's pretty good.
I think 400. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think 400. Like 400, 450.
something like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
450 BC.
Mm-hmm.
BCE, I guess. Because yeah, it's 400. Because it's really close to the other prophets of doom. We just crossed, by the way, 75% of the Bible this year. For those who've been keeping up with us, yay! So yeah, we're doing all right there. But we're getting to the end now of the Old Testament, and I know it's 400 years between Malachi and Matthew, and all the ones. But we got to remember it's not sequential, and there was not just like one prophet at a time.
Exactly.
So a lot of these prophets of doom, as they call those last 12 books of the Old Testament, have a lot of overlap. So yeah, I think something right. But yeah, I mean, calling it from that far out. What's funny is Isaiah's predictions were so accurate that people believed that Isaiah was written after Christ, right? And after all the sieges that Isaiah predicts and everything came to be. And then we find the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's like, oh, this is prior to God, that these, prior to Christ, that these prophecies were written. Truly is an incredible thing. And I know that God doesn't want us to believe because of stuff like that, right? Like God actually kind of doesn't like it when we believe because he pulled off like a magic trick, or when he's like showing people the future necessarily. Wants people to believe because the believers take care of others' needs, right? Like this is his way. This was Christ's way, right? Let's feed people and meet them when they are. But I will say the magic tricks are pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue too much against that.
And by golly, it was definitely magic when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found.
It's magnetic rocks in the middle of that field, right? Like just wild stuff. And of course, we found other documents since then that have confirmed that Isaiah was written prior to the New Testament. I think it's funny that it was just so accurate that the assumption was that it must have been done retroactively. So it's a cool thing. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This is the part about the armor of God. Cool passage regardless. We kind of talk a lot about that armor of God. But, it's important to remember who our target is, right, with this armor of God. We're not fighting against people, flesh and blood. We're fighting against concepts. What are these concepts? Rulers, authorities, powers of darkness, right? That this, frankly, it's hard to read anything except kind of politics in this, right? That there is a political authority that is wrong. We have to remember this word when people look at Romans 13, that the word governing got added to the word when it's like, oh, obey your governing authorities. They're clearly talking about church authorities. I'll die on that hill. We can talk about that another time when that's the discussion. But the reason I bring that up is because otherwise there's no reconciling this verse. We fight against authorities. That's the point. We fight against rulers, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. So we are fighting a spiritual battle, of course, right? For sure. But powers of this dark world as well. This one currently, there are still things that we fight against. And these political rulers are something that we kind of have to battle against, right? Now, I don't demand anarchy of everybody that I talk to. I understand that it's kind of there's an extreme position here, and I'm aware I'm on the fringes of the extreme, and I don't want to act like I'm the normal one and everybody else is just stupid. Obviously, it's not the case, right? That there is maybe some semblance to be made. But if you want to read Romans 13 to be political, look at how it says political authorities are supposed to act for the good of everybody, right? Helping
Mm-hmm.
people, making sure not a single person is harmed under their care. And when we talk about this here, then you can say evil authorities, like powers of the dark world. Okay, fine, right? Like, I'm not going to force anarchy down your throat, but we can all at least admit that there are evil orders, that there are sinful leaders, and their positions of power are wrong when they use their powers to strike against innocent people. Isaiah's been really clear about it, against the poorest
Mm-hmm.
of us, right? Against widows and orphans and workers, especially, right? Like people that are just trying to get their fair share in this life, and all these people are ganging up against them. And so we talk about
Mm-hmm.
this here. Like, I think this is really important for us to keep in mind, that our struggle is not against our fellow man. This is not, when we talk about this, and maybe it's good lesson to talk now, like in light of like Charlie Kirk and everything. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want people going out and killing Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is not my enemy. Who is my enemy? The people that he ushered in, right? And not just
Mm-hmm.
people, sorry, the concept of what he ushered in. Tyranny,
Mm-hmm.
right? Political control, people that punish like the least of us, despite 400 plus verses about being kind to immigrants. These political things talking about being cruel to immigrants, right? Like, that
Mm-hmm.
is my enemy. And I want to be careful that my enemy doesn't become a person of flesh and blood, because guess what? You can kill Charlie Kirk, but you don't kill hate. It's Martin Luther King Jr., right? Who was like, you can kill haters, but that doesn't make their hate go away. You kill liars,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make the lie go away, right? We aren't fighting against sinners, we're fighting against sin, and we have to be careful with that target. And so when we talk about rulers and authorities and powers of the dark world, we're fighting against that as a concept. The ability for somebody to tyrannically rule over another person is wrong, and Christians are called to rebel against that concept of political authority and anybody that claims to have power over another innocent human being in a dark world. Zach, I'm sure you have some thoughts on that one here.
I mean, you hit it. I mean, we live in a fallen world, so I mean, humanity is not the enemy of humanity. Uh, it's the demonic, it's the spirits that are within that kind of guide us to doing full-fledged fall into our own trap of our own desires, and one desire is power and greed. I mean, obviously then there's lust, but when it comes to like tyrannical regimes, they just want power. So it's not Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping or Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or whatever. It's not them that's the evil ones. It's their ideas that they back that are evil. So
Yeah.
got to learn to love your enemy. I mean, when you love your enemy, then you can hopefully teach your enemy, or at least teach people to just separate themselves from the enemy, but still love them nonetheless.
Yeah, that's just, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well said. Back to Isaiah. Sing, O childless woman, you who never given birth. Break into loud and joyful song, O Jerusalem, you who have never been in labor. For the desolate woman now has more children than the woman who lives with her husband, says the Lord. Enlarge your house, build an addition, spread out your home and spare no expense, for you will soon be bursting at the seams. Your descendants will occupy other nations and resettle the ruined cities. So the people of God are not called just to Jerusalem. We have this concept of Israel, but in what Isaiah is talking about, he's not talking about a single nation, right? He's talking about this, we as a people. And that all of a sudden you might not think you have children, but everybody is a child of God, right? So now,
Mm-hmm.
who do you consider brother and sister? You might say, oh, I never had a brother and sister. When you are in a Christian church, it should feel like everyone is your brother and sister. How many, and I think this is kind of one of the problems with atomization of society. When there's a child running around, we just say, oh, that's not my child. No, it's all children are our children, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to love every child as though it's one of our own. It seems like kind of a fanatical concept, but I'm actually in a book club with Aaron, who unfortunately may not grace us today, but we got to read about the Hopi Native Americans, and they actually lived that concept that once they had a child, it belonged to the community, and it was a rather successful technique that everybody was their mother, everybody was their father. And I think there's a genetic levels that I think is probably not healthy, that wants us to say, no, that's my kid. He's extra my responsibility, right? Like he's better. Like I care about that one more than all the other kids because this one is mine. I care about this one. I see this a lot when people, because I have kids, but I don't love other people's kids less just because I have two kids, right? Like, and so one of the issues that I see among, sometimes people give birth to their kids and they kind of say, oh, I live in the real world now. I have a kid, and I understand that you got to crack some eggs, and those eggs always end up being other people's kids in order to protect your own kids, but they're all our own kids. And I like the way Isaiah phrases this here: enlarge your house. Build an addition. Don't keep people out. Bring people in. Spread out your home and spare no expense, right? At throwing that wide net over the whole world, right? That we are going to occupy other nations and settle in ruined cities and places like that are like desolate places where we don't think there are Jews or Christians or whatever there now, that those are our children as well. And we're going to settle there in all these other places. Let's see here. Nurse says, got to get the facts straight. It's the writer in you. Narcissistic, thank you for joining us in the chat tonight. I appreciate it. Don't like this verse. Kids are sticky and loud. I understand not wanting to be a parent sometimes. I think everybody can relate to that. I think parents can relate to that to some degree, and I think even prospective parents can relate to that to some degree, and people who don't wish to be parents can relate to that to some degree. If I'm to take, I know you're making kind of a joke here, but like in seriousness, when we talk about parenting then becoming a community decision, think about what that means, that we can have somebody who's like really good with like one-on-one kid time and somebody else who's just like doing the laundry, right? Like we don't have to make everybody take the same role. Like if we are being a true Christian community, that means we are dividing and conquer. Remember that, divide and conquer sounds bad in this case, but take care of any issues that come up. Remember that this is kind of the early church. They decided to split up this task between people that were preaching and people who were feeding the poor. They were working together, but they understand, hey, some people are good over here, some people are good over here. Let's get people the jobs they're supposed to be at. So maybe your job as a parent is like, doesn't have much to do with hands-on kid time. Right? Maybe you're actually empowering other people who are taking care of the kids and telling them you love them and you got this, right? Be good encouragers to them. There's all kinds of roles when we talk about this in our society. The idea that a priest is better than like a dentist is fundamentally wrong. Oh, Narcissistic says, I'm a parent. My opinion stands still. I also taught preschool. I know what I speak. Oh my. Okay. So you actually are speaking from a place of experience of not wanting to be kids to everybody in the whole world. Yeah. My apologies for speaking out of ignorance there. No, it can be brutal. My brother taught elementary school, and it is, I'm sure preschool is an entirely different animal, but yeah. Anyway, Zach, your thoughts on this one?
You hit it right on the money. So
I left up the wrong thing. I suck. Sorry. Go ahead.
The community is a big driver right there. Doesn't matter if it's a church. I mean, to talk about Israel or Jerusalem, I mean, let's refer to it as the New Jerusalem to come. And the church is Israel, and humanity is the congregation within the kingdom of Israel. So you hit it right there. I mean, especially with the parent thing, and that's interesting about the Hopi people. Actually, I'm fascinated with old indigenous cultures and the way that they lived, and that's actually fantastic. And that kind of is an omen to how we're living today. We're not living very natural, and I think we need to get back to that natural aspect, which means get back to God, and you'll find community in almost every realm. So
Yeah, it's good. It's I think Isaiah talked about how it should be done. Isaiah talks about our failures. We'll get there in a minute, but also talks about like the capacity that we have, the ability that we have. And I don't want to just be only disparaging to Christians. I believe we are still like the greatest source of like welfare in this country, that even government welfare is done like over 50% through Christian organizations. Like we have the capacity within ourselves to do tremendously wonderful things. We just fail a lot of the times, and we don't do ourselves any favors when we add a word like submit and then do that, right? Like, so we just want to make sure we're getting it right here. What I got pulled up on the screen here is another one I like. Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink, even if you have no money. Come and take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Why spend your money on food that does not give you strength? Why pay for food that does you no good? Listen to me and you'll eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. I see a lot of Christians, for some reason, really adhering to the whole like give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Okay, that's fine, I guess. Like I want people to learn to fish, but we do need to feed people, right? Like it's okay to, like, we are so paranoid about giving away free things. And right here, what is this supposed to look like in this Christian church that we have? What is it supposed to look like? Not only can you come in and drink, it's not just water. You want some wine? You want some milk? You want the good stuff that not only when you join a Christian community should we be providing for needs, we should be providing for something that's better than that, right? Like that, it's like, hey, listen, I'm not just giving you like food that's like, hey, a piece of bread and water, right? This will keep you from death. We're not trying to keep people from death. We're trying to make people thrive. And so it should look like, come and enjoy. You know, Bray says we have the financial capacity, just not the capacity of grace it would take. Yes, that is quite true.
Yes,
Narcissistic says, all jokes aside, I think there is a movement of advocacy for kids with younger generations via gentle parenting and awareness advocacy stuff, breaking cycles, etc. I don't want to derail the entire conversation, but I became sold on children's liberation like a couple years ago, and it was eye-opening stuff. I do think, and I'm not just saying like children disobey your parents or anything like that, but that kids are still people, right? They're not property. There's still, you can take a guardianship of a child and guard their rights in their life and everything, but their life is still their own. Yeah.
Let them go play until the lights come on at 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
Make sure you're home. Make sure you're home when the street lights are on.
Yeah, Narcissistic says, sorry, I'm in the peanut gallery. Today's a bit of a verbalization struggle. Today's a verbalization struggle for me every day. So you're okay. But yeah, you're totally fine to be in the comments. Obviously, we're happy there. If you give people free stuff, you're encouraging poverty. Yeah, which has never actually been true in the history of ever. But whatever. People need their needs met before they can move on, right? Like this is... Jesus gave out food. We're told in Matthew, Jesus decided not to even speak in scripture and just gave out food because the giving is the scripture. Do unto others as you'd have done unto you. That is all the law and the prophets. So teaches the Bible, right? So the idea that Jesus wasn't speaking scripture when he was giving out free food is fundamentally incorrect. Let's see here. There's a lot here, and I know we're running down on time, and so I just want to make sure I get to the good stuff here. We talked earlier, you and I, about fruit, about getting to the fruit of labor. And so I have... Oh, it's on the same page. I just need to scroll down a little. My sec. Is this it? Yes, it is. The rain and snow come down from the heavens and stay on the ground to water the earth. They cause the rain to grow, producing seed for the farmer and bread for the hungry. It is the same with my word. I send it out, and it always produces fruit. It will accomplish all I want it to do, and it will prosper everywhere I send it. You will live in joy and peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song, and the trees of the field will clap their hands. Where once there were thorns, cypress trees will grow. Where nettles grew, myrtles will sprout up. These events will bring great honor to the Lord's name. They'll be an everlasting sign of his power and love. This is what the Lord says: be just and fair to all. Do what is right and good, for I am coming soon to rescue you and display my righteousness among you. Blessed are those who are careful to do this. So again, this is just the idea that God's fruit always succeeds, that there's never a time when it fails. Now, listen, you might die. Like, certainly that happens a lot in the Bible and everything, but you'll still be full of joy and peace that you are doing the right thing. It's how you know you're going to be on the right track. People can join you. You might be in the minority. You might be oppressed. You might be all these other things, but you're going to find self-control and gentleness and love and all the fruit of the Spirit that is mentioned, right? You're going to find all those great things. The way that Isaiah phrases this, it's symbolism, obviously. Obviously, trees don't clap their hands with joy, right? But basically that we make the mountains and the hills burst into song. We take everything that's dead and we make it alive around us. What does Jesus mean by you're the salt of the earth? What does salt do? Salt itself isn't a flavor, but enhances the flavor of everything around it, right? That's why you add it to, that's why it's good on caramel and cookies, as well as like steak, right? That it just takes a flavor that exists and makes it stronger. How many Christians do we know that try to suppress, try to say, well, let's limit your excitement. Let's temper what you feel. Let's hone that down. Let's contain it a little bit. I was watching something with Doug Wilson. I believe it was his wife, but she was sitting next to him, talking about how she had a child and the child was over at like a friend's house and she came to pick her up and she was like, oh, is it time to go? And she brags about getting home and spanking the heck out of this kid. And was like, the next time I come pick you up, you say, yay, mom's here to come pick me up. You do not get to be sad. Like, we're stifling these kids' emotions and bragging about it, right? Like, this is not taking dead things and putting life into them. This is taking lively things, like a kid that's having fun at a friend's house, and saying it's not okay to be more excited for them than for me. And I'll prove that by force, by spanking, like punishment. Like, this is so backwards what we've done. And I love the way Isaiah phrases this, that we want to bring life where there isn't life right now. We want to bring fruit where there might not be some right now, that we are the church that causes the grain to grow, that there's seeds everywhere, right? The earth is covered with seeds, but we are the water that allows it to flourish. Christianity should be surrounded by flourishing. If you're an artist, then if you're part of a Christian church, you become a flourishing artist, that all of a sudden you have your paints right here and whatever canvases you need right there. And we're feeding that with you, right? We're feeding your passions and whatever you want, and that's what Christianity is supposed to be, as opposed to something that stifles you and tries to stick you in a box and tries to make you the same as every other Christian who came before you. That's not appropriate for a body of Christ that requires many different bodily functions in order to work. We need people that are of a variety of personalities and experiences and desires and loves. And without all of those things, we'd be nothing. Zach, your thoughts?
We are to mimic what heaven is to be. And I think, and from what I take from that part is he's talking about heaven. So I don't know. I don't have any other things to say on it. It's just it's heaven. So
it's there's a little controversy on this one, whether he's talking about heaven or just being hypothetical about earth. Yeah. So I think I know. Yeah, appropriately so. But I want to say I think you are right to point that out, that this thing seems so much like heaven, then probably because it is.
And I also like to point that the difference in perspective from both sides of the pendulum of our church that schismed is one side likes to take certain aspects literal that could be metaphorical, and then the other side takes what probably is metaphorical while the other side takes it literal. I don't know, and that's good. That's what I like, perspective. So maybe that's what we need. Now let's combine it all together and love first.
Yeah. Yeah. Put
So,
that. Appreciate you fitting that little one in there. Yeah.
yeah.
Bray says high five to all the cycle breakers for sure. It is far more common to perpetuate pain that was done against you forward. To stop that cycle, whether you were assaulted and decide not to assault your kids, or you were,
Mhm.
your families were alcoholics and you decide to put a stop to that yourself. That's the rare instance. I think people on the outside think it's
Mhm.
just common sense. Oh, you were hit, but you knew the pain of being hit. You don't want to hit others. Psychologically, that's just not the way it works. We tend to rationalize and normalize the pain that we endured and then put that in others. And so, yeah, like if you're able to break the cycle and just say, yeah, and you don't have to hate your parents. Listen, my parents loved me. They
Mhm.
they spanked me. Later in life, they would be like, that was a mistake. I wish we didn't do it. We're all forgiven, right? I don't spank my kids, right? We're all good. They did the best they could with what they knew, right? Like I can have some compassion to them. But yeah, like let's aim to be cycle breakers if you can. Obviously, it's a difficult thing, but climb that hill. Narcissistic says, right, gentle parenting is not permissive parenting. Right. I mean,
I'm
I tend to
I'm
get along
not gonna lie. I should have been spanked a lot
no.
more when I was a kid.
But look at
I
you
was a
now. That'd be
yeah.
terrible. You learn
No.
violence. Narcissistic says that's incredibly poetic. Oh, yeah, they clap in a hurricane. That's true. The leaves of the
Huh.
field. If you're a useless lump like me, samesies and useless lumps have places within the church as well. Narcissistic, but I highly doubt you are a useless lump. As Braid says, no one is
No.
useless.
Yeah. No one is useless. We all have a purpose. Just
I
gotta find it.
Yeah, and maybe your
Yeah.
purpose is just to stay alive. I mean, what was Job's purpose?
Yeah.
Right? Like he's a
To be.
story,
Mhm.
right? Like we learn a lot from it, but ultimately his story is his and your story is yours, right? Like even if all you
Mhm.
do is stay alive and breathe another day,
That's all
man,
that
this
matters.
the world's tough enough, right? Like breathing another
Mhm.
day, it's a miracle that we can do it, right? So it's okay.
Mhm.
I want to read all of Isaiah 58. I know it's a little long, but this is big to me. It's talking about what God means when we fast versus what Christians, unfortunately, today mean when they fast. And boy,
Mhm.
Zach, I know you already noticed that a lot of this is poignant for today. This one, I
Yeah.
think, maybe more so than any other part of Isaiah. So I will read this. Shout with the voice of a trumpet blast. Shout aloud. Don't be timid. Tell my people Israel of their sins, yet they act so pious. So remember our target here, the believers, right?
Mhm.
These are not, who are we telling off about their sins? Not non believers, telling believers, stop acting so
Yep.
pious. They come to the temple every day and they seem delighted to learn all about me. They act like a righteous nation that would never abandon the laws of its God. They ask me to take action on their behalf, pretending they want to be near me. We have fasted before you, they say. Why aren't you impressed? We've been very hard on ourselves and you don't even notice it. I will tell you why, I respond. It's because you are fasting to please yourselves. Even while you fast, you keep oppressing your workers. What good is fasting when you keep on fighting and quarreling? This kind of fasting will never get you anywhere with me. You humble yourselves by going through the motions of penance, bowing your heads like reeds bending in the wind. You dress in burlap and cover yourselves in ashes. Is that what you call fasting? Do you really think this will please the Lord? No, this is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongfully imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free and remove the chains that bind people. Share your food with the hungry. Give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them. And do not hide from relatives who need your help. Those 8 things. Then your salvation will come like the dawn, and your wounds will quickly heal. Your godliness will lead you forward, and the glory of the Lord will protect you from behind. Then, when you call, the Lord will answer, yes, I am here. He will quickly reply. Remove the yoke, the heavy yoke of oppression. Stop pointing your finger and spreading vicious rumors. Feed the hungry and help those in trouble. Then your light will shine out from the darkness, and the darkness around you will be as bright as noon. The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry and restoring your strength. You'll be like a well watered garden, like an ever flowing spring. Some of you will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities. Then you will be known as a rebuilder of walls and a restorer of homes. Big one there. That's what we want to go for. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Don't pursue your own interests on that day, but enjoy the Sabbath and speak of it with delight as the Lord's holy day. Honor the Sabbath and everything you do on that day, and don't follow your own desires or talk idly. Then the Lord will be your delight. I will give you great honor and satisfy you with the inheritance I promised your ancestor Jacob. I, the Lord, have spoken. Like, just, I think the colossal implications here. What is fasting? It's not giving up something. It's giving something you have to somebody else, right? And in some cases, it doesn't cost us a dime. Free those who are wrongfully imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free and remove the chains that bind people. Share your food with the hungry. Give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them. And do not hide from relatives who need your help. Right? Like, those are the 8 things that God says real fasting is. We almost never think of those things when we think about fasting.
We really don't. I mean, share your food rather than giving up your food just to give up. I mean, most people do. They see it as it's a time to pray, and you stop eating. You give up something. Typically, that's where most people go. You give up something, like give up eating for a significant amount of time, and you just pray. But there's more to it than just that. You surrender yourself. You absolutely surrender yourself to God and to others, and you give back, and simultaneously that's reciprocating it back to you, because you're becoming whole, because we're all a community. It's a balance. It's a balancing act between God, you, and the rest of the community, the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well said. Like, it's just, there's no barrier up between us all.
But to be fair about the eating aspect, I mean, I fast
Yeah.
on myself all the time without even knowing it. I just won't eat until dinner.
You just forgot. Spaced it. There's a really cool, I have a friend who's Catholic. I know, weird. But he so he taught me about what fasting really was when I typed this out, and it was kind of cool. It's tied to almsgiving. So the reason they do like the fish on Fridays is because fish was the cheap meat, and like meat was the other meat. And so what it was is they take the money that they saved by eating fish instead of, man meat, and they would take that money and they would give it to the poor, right? So then that's actually direct, like, that's fasting, right? I'm giving up something. Well, I'm not giving up anything. I'm giving somebody something that I have, right? Like, and this is what enables us to do it. That if we're fasting right, we're not just, it's not suffering, it's giving our love that we have and sharing it with other people. Narcissistic says, well, I'm not climbing in a whale. Wait, you said Job. My sound is spotty. Yeah, that's all right. The J's can get confusing in my head. Like I said, like the Barabbas thing earlier, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there are 2 Barabbases. I don't know.
To be fair, I mean, Jonah was basically the opposite of Job. So there you go.
Yeah, that's true. They are not in personality. They are not closely related. Let's see. Same, the forgotten meals of same to you. Gotcha. Same, the forgotten meals of ADHD. I probably could stand to forget more meals than I currently forget.
Part of me wants to do a novena one of these days. I need to do a novena. It's been a minute. The 9 days of prayer and fasting.
What's it called? Ovena?
A novena.
Novena?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's literally prayer. 7 you spend about 9 days praying each and every day. And in the meantime you give something up. So perhaps you don't eat until a certain time. Perhaps you give up some sort of time for another time. Who knows? Yeah. So generally, your Catholic friend is exactly right. So it is about the alms as well.
Man, I Theology is so broad, man. Like I think it's wild
It
that I just
really is.
learn about stuff constantly. Like
Mhm.
I am bombarded with stuff that I don't know every day. And everything I learn, I feel
Oh,
like it
it's
opens
amazing.
up 4 more things I don't know. Like it's just like a hydra. Like
Mhm.
it's getting carried away on me. It's cool though. I'll leave this up for me to study later. One I wanted to say here, Proverbs 24:12. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Hang on, I like this translation really good here. Don't excuse yourself by saying, look, we didn't know. For God understands all hearts and he sees you. He who guards your soul knows you knew. He will repay all people as their actions deserve. This is a big one in the internet era that we will
Mhm.
encounter people who will pretend to not know that some bad thing is happening, and you've got to do all the Google searching for them and help them out, and they'll be like, but is that the right source? And I'm like, man, right? Like at this point, you just don't want to say
Mhm.
because it's devastating to your politics or your team sport or something like that, right? Like, but you got to be
Mhm.
able to just say, as Christians, we're called to say our lack of knowledge is not an excuse. First of all, we have the Holy Spirit, one of which his gift is knowledge. Okay. Or
Mhm.
gift, I guess, is knowledge. So we have access to knowledge. And so it's not an excuse for us. But secondly, like it's just kind of like the Holy Spirit knows your heart, knows you either know or could know, and you opted not to. And that, like, I like the way Proverbs says this, that's not going to save you, right? Like, that's not going to give
Mhm.
you an excuse here. Yeah, uh, you're good. Nurse says the subtitles are helping me out with the parts that skip. I'm on mobile. Yeah, well, I appreciate you tuning in. See, that's a good excuse to not be here today as well, right? Being bad with words, I'm going to make you show up. But if you're out and about, then I understand that as well. Zach, any thoughts about pretending to not know stuff for this part in Proverbs?
Nothing for me. So you kind of hit it.
Cool. Let's see here. Let's move on to Philippians 2:9. Let's give it. Oh, let's not do King James version. That's offensive. I don't want to offend anybody. Let's see. All right. This is the wrong tab. Here's the right tab. Because of this, God lifted Jesus high above everything else. He gave him a name that is greater than any other name. So when the name of Jesus is spoken, everyone in heaven and on earth and under the earth will bow before him, and every tongue will say Jesus Christ is Lord. Everyone will give honor to God the Father. We talked about this before, how this was coming up again.
Mhm.
Universalism is kind of all over the place, but yeah. Scientific libertarians here. Hey, scientific, thanks for joining me. Oh my gosh. He says pretending to not know is usually how I tell if someone is full of it or not. Yeah, that's like a super disingenuous tactic. It drives me crazy. Um, anyway, to get back to our part in Philippians here, like this is so big for me because again, it's the people that have already passed before. This is not an uncommon thing within like the entire Bible. I'm actually surprised how much salvation of the dead comes up in the Bible. Like I knew about the harrowing of hell with Peter, but to see it in Isaiah, to see it in Philippians, to see it like this, that
Mhm.
we're all going to get saved eventually. That sacrifices for us. Um,
Mhm.
Nurse says King James himself was offensive to modern polite
That,
society. Yeah, I'm sorry. I almost had to show people. Go ahead, Zach. I've kind of said all I need to say about this one.
oh, I was yeah, King James. Well, weren't they all? They were. They were all.
Yeah, I don't hate the King James version. Um, I just
I
think that
I yeah,
go
I
ahead.
like it because it's closer to it's closer in the translation, but it's a little too contemporary for me for yeah, for that time period, and I can see exactly where people can say that's a little offensive. That's offensive. So I understand where the offensiveness comes from. So, but I do like it for the simple fact that it is a little closer in translation, but then brings in that contemporary aspect with the thou shall.
Yeah, narcissistics as a woman, I'm not a big fan. Yeah,
I
like yeah,
yeah.
we get a
That's
lot of
probably
those,
where.
right?
Oh, good.
Right. A lot of those problematic places. And I think it's
Hmm.
unfortunate, but at the same time, I think it's a good humility for Christians. Like we need to
Hmm.
recognize that we have infiltrators, right? Like we are, where does the Antichrist come from? He doesn't come from outside, he comes from inside. He's a wolf in
Yeah.
sheep's clothing, right? Like he pretends to be one of us. Jesus doesn't place the burden on the rest of the world. They don't believe what we believe. They can do their own
Hmm.
thing. The burden is on us to keep it clean, right? And so, yeah, I like that we are careful about it. I like that we are good. I like when we are worried about it, when we are saying, well, not worried, but mindful of it, right? That we are on the alert to say we're not better than anybody else. We're just going to have to watch each other, keep
Hmm.
it real. Um, Last one here, and then we can talk for a minute about any current events we want to. Yet they say to each other, "Don't come too close, or you will defile me. I am holier than you." These people are a stench in my nostrils, an acrid smell that never goes away. This is, unfortunately, a part of the gospel that I hear a lot from Christians today. And again, Isaiah is predicting the future. So it makes sense
Hmm.
that this is something we hear from Christians a lot today, that they don't want to be close to people because those people are evil. They're going to defile us, right? Like all these I forget who was the one guy, but was it Haggard who was like, I can't even fly on planes because they're drinking alcohol, and so I have to fly in like a private plane or whatever. Yeah, shut up. Right? Like you're not holier than
Yeah.
anybody. Jesus is a man who immersed himself with sinners, right? And was
Hmm.
not worried about becoming defiled. In fact, he saw that defiling himself would have been separating them away. That is what we Christians need to have. And I like the way God just phrases. How does he feel about that? You smell badly in heaven, right? You make a bad smell, and God doesn't like it the way you smell when you use language like this. Zach, any final thoughts?
I mean, that's that right there is just on par with my church. I mean, in the Catholic Church, you have the divisional between the paracouncil or the theologically left and the trad casts of the Vatican II era. And when do we just settle down? Why don't you go read and look at Vatican II, understand that it's biblical, and let's come back together because it's beautiful. It really is. So, and instead, you got one side that wants to be this, and the other side wants to be that, and they have. I mean, that's not even what the church is about. We're not supposed to be fighting and bickering amongst each other. We should
Yeah.
be coming together and holy reverence for our Lord and our Savior and our God and being a family for what we are.
Yeah. I like the
Mhm.
way you say it. Like it's a beautiful thing. Unity is obviously a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
And I think for me, when I see these, and I know they're famous, but like I guess I just have that instinct that God kind of has. Like I
Mhm.
cringe, right? Like it smells
Mhm.
when I hear somebody talking about like, oh,
Mhm.
we can't have these people around us because we're better than them. We're
Mm.
holier than them. We can't allow, and man, when did Christianity become a faith? Where it started, we could walk two people into a foreign land where they don't even speak the same language, don't have the same religious background or any of that, and convert the entire nation to Christianity, even after getting martyred because we're such good people, and loving
Mhm.
people. Like that's OG Christianity, right? Like that's legit Christianity. When did we lose that edge and then suddenly become a people that are just like, if we don't keep out the non-Christians, my faith is dead? It's like, dude, you should pray that none of your neighbors are Christians, right? Like
Mm.
that's how you know you're doing it right, right? Like that, welcome them all in. And if you
Mhm.
are living right, they are going to change, right? They're going to want to see what makes you shine and want to be part of that, right? Like that's
Mhm.
natural. People, you don't even have to what is it St. Francis of Assisi who says speak God's name often, use his name little. It might not be him, but somebody says that. But like you don't even have to use
I
God's
recognize
name a lot. The
mhm.
quote. Yeah, like
I
just
recognize the quote.
like you can have that beautiful, wonderful thing, and people are going to ask you, hey, what's up with that? Right? They're going to come to you, right? You're going to get like a Sermon on the Mount situation. People are going to be like, how are you able to endure these difficult things that I'm struggling with? How is this? What is the source? You don't need to say this is the right thing. People are going to come find you, right? Jesus didn't have to say,
Mm-hmm.
I am your salvation to everybody. They came to him and they were like, I'm curious about salvation, and you seem like the guy that I want to learn from. Focus on being the guy they want to learn from, more so than saying I have all the answers to salvation. You know. Let's see here. Sting wrote a song about that. I am a big Stig fan, narcissistic. You will win many points by talking about classic rock. There's no belief in science conclusions. Let's see. There's no belief in science. Conclusions either have evidence or they don't. You believe in Jesus. You don't believe in science. Let's see here. There's no belief in science. Conclusions either have evidence or they don't. You believe in Jesus. You don't believe in science. I believe in Jesus and science. I feel like there's a good amount of evidence. I feel like with the evidence I talk about, scientific, since we're talking about this, is the fruit of the Spirit, basically. If I practice these things correctly, am I yielding the fruit, right? And that's ultimately the standard that God provides. So in a way, there actually is a very scientific element of that. If we care about joy, peace, love, gentleness, self-control, the fruit of the Spirit, then we can test, right? Like cause and effect. There is really a scientific element to this, to being able to say, well, I practiced this, but I didn't get the fruit of the Spirit. And so therefore, even this thing, even if I thought it was right? Your hypothesis, you make a hypothesis. Even if you thought it was right, if it didn't end up that way, then you change, right? Then you say, I need to alter the way I thought I understood this thing. I think we've almost all come to these things, that we've had a misunderstanding. I thought the Bible wanted me to hate the gays, but then I fell into this really hateful place and it was terrible and we got bad fruit and all this. And so I left and I joined instead a group that loved the gays and also God, and they had the fruit of the Spirit. These other ones didn't. That's cause and effect, right? Like this is very much like kind of a scientific, to me, an observable scientific examination. But I don't think you mean this as an insult. But let's see. Nurse 6 says, I disagree strongly in the concept that you can't have faith in both a higher power and in science. I don't think scientific's meaning to be. I think I know the guy. He's a good guy. I think he's saying something and I'm reading it wrong. But yeah, it seems very, very myopic view.
He's being scientific.
Yeah. Well, and I like science. Like I think that's the thing. I can't stand Christians that like reflexively reject science. Jesus talks about the parable of the storeroom owner. And he's like, you want to be like this, where you take out both old truths and new truths, right? Jesus said there's plenty of truths that you guys aren't ready for. He says it straight up, right? So like when there's new information, Christians should be the first ones to embrace it, as opposed to running away and then being like, look at what the libtards invented. Look what they're going to teach you kids. No, take new information. Take it, accept it, incorporate it into part of your world knowledge. Anyway.
Well, some of our most notable scientists in history were astute to the church. So,
yeah,
I mean, you've had a balance.
Yeah. I mean, Galileo, did he die for God or did he die for the truth? I would argue that he died for both. that he died for what he knew to be true, but what he knew to be true didn't lead him to rejecting God. You know, that this was God is like, if God isn't true, then I'll be the first one in the atheist line. Why? I don't want to believe in something that's not true. You know, so he believed both. Anyway, Zach, I know we've got precious little time here, but is there any current event this week that struck your mind, struck your fancy, anything that was on your mind?
In the past week?
Or recently, or anything you felt like talking
recently.
about? Yeah.
Well, I guess we might be on the auspices of World War III. Something's going down in with NATO and Poland and Russia, and that's I don't know. I try to stay away from all of that, but then I noticed things. I guess then you also had Hexeth's 800 general ceremony, I guess, or meeting, I guess. I don't even know what I didn't even watch it. You know what it was about? Something about getting ready. Get ready for
the
war, everybody.
Quantico meeting, the Hegseth
Yeah,
and
the
Trump
Quantic.
Quantico meeting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, I watched it. So I actually have a free for all show tomorrow with Big John, and yeah, we're gonna talk about it, and it's like getting beat with a bag of oranges, man. Like you can hear the
I gotta
crazy
watch it.
because like the thing is these are generals, right? These are people that
Mm-hmm.
understand military. These are people who understand military like tactics and stuff, and like they are well familiar with everything. So the thing is they're not the right audience to just like lie to. Like if you're having a
Mm-hmm.
rally, you can just like say whatever you want and expect people to clap. Trump actually had to ask them to clap at one point. Like he was like, "Clap, it's okay to clap." Yeah, they're dead silent because like you're an idiot, right? And like they're listening to you be an idiot. And so like,
Oh,
yeah,
so it wasn't nothing. It was basically a Trump rally.
it was essentially a Trump rally where he talked about declaring war on American cities, which is that's freaking nightmarish, right?
That
Like
is,
he
yeah,
actually
that's a
called it
little.
a war from within and was like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not the Department of Defense anymore, it's the Department of War, and this is a war from within. So
I saw that quote.
he declared it a war himself, which is like,
Mm.
I don't know, it's bananas to me, man. Like I
Wait,
just, yeah.
I'll have to watch. I'll actually have to watch the full episode just to see,
Yeah.
just to see it for myself, because that's we're not living in good times. That's for sure.
So yeah, he said like Trump said, let's see here, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. National
Mm-hmm.
Guard, but our military. We're going to Chicago very soon. Another quote, America is under invasion from within, no different than a foreign enemy just because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. Another quote, if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future. Yeah,
Are
and then
we
what Hegseth said was even crazier. Sorry, go ahead.
are we living 1933 all over again, or
I don't know, man.
I think the left was right, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's
Wow.
I did not think Trump would be this bad going into it. I thought I knew he was going to be bad, right? Like I didn't vote for him.
Oh yeah.
But like
Yeah.
I thought we were going to I thought we after 1 month of his presidency, I thought we were going to be where he got us to after like 4 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought he was like that first month, I guess you could say I predicted it, but I thought it was going to be like drawn out, instead it's just been like relentless beatings since then. Yeah, so like with stuff like that, we're like, okay, a good example is like Hegseth was like, we're not going to have separate standards for women in the military anymore. And so of course the room goes silent because there aren't separate standards for women in the military. You either hit the qualifications or you don't.
Or you don't. Yeah.
That's it. And so all these military people know he's up there acting like General Patton, and they are like, you're a clown. You don't even have like a cursory internet view of like what we're like. These people are very plugged in and knowledgeable, and he's talking down to them as though they need his knowledge. It's like it would be the equivalent of in theological circles of like having the Pope sit down and having like the leader of the IBC sit down, just having all these religious leaders like sit down and shut up to listen to like the most uneducated YouTuber just like spout off. And just and unfortunately the uneducated YouTuber actually has the power over them. It would be like that. And you're just like, it feels like that. It's bad. But yeah, I mean, I think the dangerous thing when you talk about like World War III, I don't want to be like an over predictor because I think libertarians have been predicting this since like the 50s and it hasn't happened. And so I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like jump the gun on,
well,
on it
technically
all.
I would say we're in like World War V or VI. Really, everything's global anymore. So
That's what I would say as well.
yeah.
We've been doing big genocides. There have been big murders. We just
Mm-hmm.
haven't been paying attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Scientific was going to clarify himself. Not meant to be taken a bad way. I don't need something to measure or record or quantify for a belief. I only need that for a scientific conclusion.
That makes
Yeah, I see what you're
yeah.
saying. But what is faith in the Bible? Faith is the evidence of things unseen. People lean into the things unseen part, but faith is evidence. Faith is what do you have to show for it, right? Like there actually is a
Mm-hmm.
way to kind of quantify these things. Now, I guess you could say, I'll give you this point. Can you quantify love? Can you quantify joy? Can you quantify gentleness and self-control? No, these aren't things that I can touch with my hands and
Mm.
have metrics, right? I grant you that. But in that case, like wouldn't a lot of psychology then be no longer reduced to science, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at a lot of things that are difficult to quantify, you know, that don't
Yep.
have exact measures. We say you have a like something like OCD. Oh, well, how much OCD? Exactly how many neurons does it take? Well, that's not really the way like that works. So I think that's what you mean, that you're not meaning for it to be demeaning. You're just, when you look in matters of science. Yeah, and I guess that's why I don't want to say religion is science. Obviously, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But that they should be friends. We should marry them. They should not be enemies of one another. Narcissistic says current events have me in a full spiral. I'm feeling like part of the next target group for the Gator jail. Yeah, certainly when
I'm I'm just waiting to be the
when they brag about going after people for what they say. Obviously,
mm,
as libertarians, that scares us. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
yeah. Oh, I just I'll self-deport if they want me to. I mean, just send me to St. Kitts.
Unfortunately, where they're deporting people to is not pretty.
El Salvador.
Nurse says we're living it in Florida. We got a head start with DeSantis. Yeah,
Mm,
the idea that we don't pay a price for bigotry. I think that goes all the way back to our like obscene jokes, like
mm-hmm.
dirty humor and everything. Like it festers, it sits around, and it gives them a grip. I highly recommend the book called The Guarded Gate. It's
Mm-hmm.
about how we came up with immigration restriction as policy. The same people who crafted the Holocaust, by the way, did it. They just crafted our policy first, and so they tanked two
Mm-hmm.
economies and committed a whole bunch of ridiculously evil acts. And it was the same group. It's highly sourced. It's scholarly. So, but it's really good. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting stories. But the people like the thing is they lost and lost and lost, and they never quite went away ever, right? They would always get some celebrity to give them some kind of nod, and that kept them around, right? They would spout off all kinds of like terrible. They said, for example, that like Christopher Columbus was Scandinavian, right? Because he was like so white. Everybody just functionally knows that's not true, right? Like it was laughable, right? Like but they were like, let's just keep pushing this lie, knowing it's a lie, but hoping we can get like some bigot within the science community or within like media or within a church to like agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll publish that on every page. And of course, they started by targeting politicians, right? Because they're influential and they're able to say things that other people would get in trouble for saying. And they have people accept their scientific results over market scientific results. So, yeah.
And they have a free speech clause, so you can't sue them or do anything. So
Narcissistic says it's more about my autism. Now, that's not a joke because unfortunately, when you do look at a lot of times, I mean, just looking at like concentration camps, the first ones, people with autism, right?
mm-hmm.
They didn't start by executing the Jews. They started by executing anybody they considered to be mentally disabled, which included a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Jews. Not that the Jews were actually mentally disabled, but they would say they were. But obviously, they would target people like of different neurological developments. And again, I think that summarizes kind of everything you and I have been talking about today, Zach. That the more we put
Mm-hmm.
divisions between these people, the
Yep.
less godly we've gotten. Whereas the more we bring people in, like Isaiah says, like expand your house, like build another
Mm-hmm.
room, build whatever you got to take to bring these people in. That we need to be
Mm-hmm.
seeking to bring people close. as opposed to casting people out. Zach, anything you want to say before we call it a night?
No, just peace be with all of you, and just spread love.
Well said. Spread love. That's a good way to go. Yeah. Zach, I really appreciate you coming tonight. It would have been awful without you. So I appreciate the viewer numbers are fantastic. So thank you to everybody who saw just my face at the beginning and decided to stick with it anyhow until Zach got here. You were about to say something else, Zach?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So it's fun. So
yeah, man, I'm really glad you came. I'm sorry we didn't have the diverse board that we had last week, but
life.
Yeah,
life gets in the way. So
life, that's how it goes. Bray, Nurse, Science, thank you so much for joining in, for giving us the comments. Everybody else, if you want to join, again, description of the video, it's got a link to Love First Christians, any walk of life. Catholic, Protestant, atheist, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Anarchist, Muslim, Jew. You got questions about God, we're happy to answer them. You got criticisms about the Bible or about Christians, we're happy to hear them. I think about half of the people in the Love First Christians are there because they are curious, not because they are full-fledged believers. And I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm actually glad to be a place where we can have these kind of interactions. So again, that description's in the video. Nurse says, I'll try to get it together next week. If it happens, that's great. I'm going to say the same. Ben had to miss this week as well. I'll say the same thing. I told him, I want whatever is healthy for you to give and not a single ounce more. Like if it's tedious, I don't even want you to be here. I want you here personally, but if it's at all tedious to you, I want us to be there for you and not the other way around. So yeah, just stay healthy, stay happy. Zach, you wrapped it up well. Love each other, guys. Be loving, but love first. God is love. So if you are loving, you are serving God. Keep with that. Zach, I'll talk to you in the chat, in the Discord. Everybody else, I will catch you next week. Or if you're doing the daily Bible readings with me, I will see you tomorrow. Anyhow, have a good one, everybody.